They thought he was just a scarred man, a limp, a shadow, a relic leaning on crutches outside the school gates like a ghost caught between two eras. One teacher even whispered, "She talks about him like he's some kind of legend, but all I see is a broken body and a VA pension." The words drifted down the hallway like they meant nothing, like the burn scars on his face weren't worth asking about. But Staff Sergeant Chris Caldwell stood there anyway, just like every morning. Weathered face calm beneath a faded Marine Corps cap, prosthetic boot resting beside a rust-spotted Dodge pickup, watching the windows, saying nothing. But that day, something shifted, because the shadow box in his daughter's room, the one no one had opened since the accident, was cracked open at dawn. Inside, a folded letter with a general's seal, and two medals not even mentioned in her civics textbook, and something else cracked open too, Maya Caldwell's heart, because the man who was supposed to teach her respect called her father's courage psychological baggage. So before we begin, let me ask you this: if you believe wounds don't weaken a warrior, they prove he stood for something greater than. Like and subscribe, because this story matters now more than ever. Maya didn't hear the snickering at first. Her voice was steady, confident, reading her essay at the front of the 7th grade civics class. The title read, "My Personal Hero." Her fingers trembled, just slightly. She'd spent a week writing it, choosing words her father would never use for himself. Words like, "He pulled two wounded soldiers from a burning Humvee, then shielded a third when the second blast lit the sky." He never talked about what he lost after that day: his skin, his ability to kneel or run without pain. Near the end she said, "My dad isn't famous, but he gave up pieces of himself so other families didn't have to lose all of theirs." The room went quiet, half a breath of silence, then came the awkward clapping, and then a voice like nails on a chalkboard. Mr. Whitman, arms folded, dryly said, "That's emotional, Maya, but trauma doesn't equal heroism." A few kids snorted. Someone in the back muttered, "Yikes." Whitman smirked, flipping his rubric. "Next time," he added, "maybe pick someone who chose to serve rather than someone who chose to get hurt." Maya didn't look up. She sat down, jaw clenched, fingers tight round the crumpled pages. No one defended her, but someone heard. Dean Reyes, the janitor, swept that hallway every day. Quiet man, wore an old army ring under latex gloves. He just happened to be walking past. He didn't confront the teacher. He didn't stop Maya. But that night, he made a quiet call to someone who owed their life to a burned-up comms unit and a man named Caldwell. And across the country, old names began to light up again, names of warriors who hadn't worn uniforms in years but who still remembered the code. "You don't mock the man who took the blast for you." That night, at dinner, Maya said nothing. Chris asked about school. She shrugged. When he took off his jacket, she glanced at the Marine patch inside the sleeve, then looked away. Later, in her room, she opened the shadow box. Inside, his bronze star, a melted dog tag, a sealed letter marked U.S. Central Command, and in reading it, something changed. She'd always known her father was brave, but now she saw something deeper. True heroism isn't in parades or medals. It's in pain, in silence, in showing up, even when they laugh. Before dawn the next day, across 4 states and 3 time zones, boots hit floors. Old ribbons were dusted off, call signs reactivated because word had spread. Maya Caldwell was shamed. That meant only one thing. It was time to report in, not to a base, not to a command, but to a classroom. Mr. Whitman's civics class returned to normal. Maya kept her head down, her notebook closed. She said fine 3 times on the ride home without meaning it once. Chris didn't ask, but that night, in the garage, he opened a green ammo box he hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside, no weapons, just a sat phone, a list of numbers written on waterproof parchment. Above them, 2 words in case needed. He dialed 3 words. They shamed her. The reply came instantly, "I'll be there by Thursday." And just like that, the signal spread. Texas, California, the Carolinas, Virginia, pins polished, Marine patches sewn onto denim, Old brothers and sisters preparing not for revenge but for remembrance. A meme went viral at school. Chris Caldwell photoshopped onto the burn notice poster. Dean Reyes saw it, said nothing, just forwarded it to a server he hadn't touched since 2009 Thursday night. Maya copied her father's letter by hand into her notebook, word for word. Like scripture, Friday morning, second period. It began with the sound of a classroom door opening, not abrupt, not dramatic, just present. 23 men and women stepped inside. No uniforms, no rank, just scars, silence, and stories. They lined the walls, back row, side walls, one with a steel leg, another with a burned scalp, a woman with a patch over one eye, a hulking man missing 3 fingers, clutching a worn satchel like it held commandments. Mr. Whitman stiffened. This is a closed. His voice cracked, because Chris Caldwell stepped through the door, not quickly, not for show, just steady. He stood by the wall, silent. Every eye turned to Maya, frozen at her desk, fingers white around her notebook. What's going on here? Whitman barked. Then Colonel Jacob Marks stepped forward. He placed a folder on Whitman's desk. This, he said, is the man you mocked, and these are the people who followed him. Inside, citations, photographs, a letter signed by a 4-star general, the most composed leader I've ever served under. The reason I made it home then, the platoon spoke. He pulled me out of a fire. He gave up his medevac seat so I could get home to my daughter. He shielded me during the ambush. He told me I mattered when my own family didn't. Silence. The classroom still, some with tears, some ashamed. For the first time they saw Maya's father not as a shadow by the pickup line, but as the reason 23 lives still walk the earth. Sergeant Ruiz stepped forward, placed something small in Maya's hand, a rusted, fused dog tag. He used this, Ruiz said, to find my pulse under enemy fire. That man saved me. Maya straightened. Not out of pride, out of recognition. Chris Caldwell stepped forward, placed his hand gently on her shoulder, and said, I didn't come for me. I came because she thought being quiet meant being wrong. He turned. The platoon followed. No applause, just presence. At the doorway, a voice called out, sir, then another, thank you, sir, and one by one, the room stood silent, not saluting, but honoring. That night, on the school homepage, under guest speakers, a new line appeared, the platoon that came for the girl. And in her room, Maya placed something new inside the shadow box beside the general's letter, a dog tag, still warm with memory. From that day forward, the mocking stopped, but more importantly the silence did too, because when a platoon walks into a classroom, they don't come to teach history, they come to finish it. Subscribe Iron Heart Stories.